Hello and welcome to the Money Compass.
In each episode, we will be preparing you for your journey through the world of finance and helping you tick off the destinations on your financial itinerary.
Pack your bags and prepare for takeoff as you navigate your way to financial success. I'm really looking forward to our outing at the weekend.
Oh, me too. I think there's going to be lots of gin involved.
I suspect there is. We are off to a gin distillery and we're making our own gin and doing some gin tasting.
Yes, we are. It's a little gem of a find that Julie came across there.
It certainly was, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Me too. Make a change for Julie to be making it in an actual distillery rather than foraging for her own things and making it at home.
Out foraging through the brambles for the berries to include. So no, that'll be a very nice day.
Will be indeed. A nice treat.
Yes, indeed. So watch this space for some pictures and some updates.
Definitely. So this week we're talking about lasting powers of attorney, aren't we, Becky? And it's one of those things that lots of people don't actually know what they are, what they do, or anything about them. So hopefully we can fill in some gaps for people today.
Hopefully we can shed some light on lasting powers of attorneys.
So I'm actually going to start a little bit backward. So we've told you we're going to talk about lasting powers of attorney, but I'm not actually going to speak about them at all to start with. I'm going to start off with enduring powers of attorney.
So, what is an enduring power of attorney?
You could have got one of these up until October 2007, and they covered you for property and financial affairs only. So we'll tell you a bit more about the difference between them and lasting powers of attorney at the moment, but these covers just that area. And what happens with an enduring power of attorney is you would do all the paperwork, sign everything and put it in place, and you couldn't do anything with it until you physically lost capacity. So there's a number of ways to test whether a person has capacity. A lot of people would think automatically that you have to have Alzheimer's or dementia or something to have lost capacity, but there's lots of different reasons why you might not have capacity. But the enduring power of attorney would get registered once you've lost capacity, so it can then only be used at that point. And obviously that it is going to take a little while for it to get registered with the Office of Public Guardian. So it's one of those things that you can't necessarily use instantly. There can be a bit of a delay. So there was basically a new improved version that was designed and brought out in October 2007.
There was indeed, and that was called the lasting power of attorney.
So Becky, I'm sure you can tell us a little bit more about what they are and what they do.
I can try. So there's actually two different types of lasting power of attorney. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the lasting power of attorney for property and financial affairs.
So this one's really the direct replacement for the enduring power of attorney, isn't it?
Exactly. So when we say property and financial affairs, what do we mean by that? Well, we mean your property, so that can be your house, or if you're lucky enough to have a holiday home, it would also mean your holiday home.
Or even property like a car or anything, really,
exactly.
Isn't it?
It's basically anything that you own. It can be your bank accounts, any investments that you have. If you have premium bonds, it would include your premium bonds. So it basically covers anything, any of your property, any of your assets that you own.
And also, people often forget about anything to do with your utility bills, claiming benefits, literally anything to do with your finances in general. This is what this one would be used for.
The list goes on and on.
It does.
So the lasting power of attorney for property and finance covers everything that we've just said and more. And basically what it means is once you've registered the power of attorney, your attorneys can then make decisions about your property and financial affairs on your behalf. So that means, for example, they can go into your bank and the person in the bank will effectively speak to your attorney as if they are you. So, for example, if you needed to say or withdraw £50 for some food shopping, let's say, then they could go in and they could withdraw that money for you as your attorney.
Mm-hmm. What's the health and welfare one? What sort of things does that cover?
So health and welfare is the other type of lasting power of attorney, and this power of attorney means that your attorneys can decide if you need to go into a care home. They can choose your care home.
So, like the old age joke of your kids always choose your care home. Not necessarily. If you've got one of these in place and you don't nominate your children.
Exactly. It could be anyone. So they choose your care home. They can choose your medical treatment. They're sort of more involved in your medical treatment, your medicines. They can actually, in some cases, they can make decisions for you as if they are you. So if you don't have capacity, let's say, for example, you're in a coma, heaven forbid, the doctors will talk to you as the attorney to make decisions for the person instead of them obviously being unable to speak to you.
So with the lasting powers of attorney, when I mentioned the enduring power of attorney, I said that it could only be registered once you've lost capacity. These two can be registered before you've lost capacity. However, the health and welfare one is only physically able to be used if you've lost capacity. So if you have capacity yourself, you have to make all those decisions yourself. You can't fob that off to someone else. But with the finance and property lasting power of attorney, you can pass the all of those jobs on while you still have capacity yourself to do them. So it could be you might be physically unable. So it might be that you're in a wheelchair or something and you can't get out to go to the bank, so you'd like someone else to do it for you. Or it could just genuinely be you can't be bothered to do those things yourself. If you want someone else to do it for you, you can. Or alternatively, if you go abroad a lot, if you're out of the country a lot of the time, and there's things that you may need to be done on your behalf, you could use a power of attorney and someone else to be able to act on your behalf while you're away.
You certainly can. And I just realised something quite important. We've been talking about attorneys, but we haven't actually explained what an attorney is. So
very true.
So we made a little bit of a faux pas there.
We just like to test people and see how much they know.
Yeah,
so some people might have figured it out already, but just in case you haven't, here's what an attorney is.
So when we say attorney, we're basically saying that is the person that you have given the authority over to make these decisions on your behalf. So it can be your children, like Emma's just touched on. It could be your siblings, your brothers, your sisters. It could even be your friends. It doesn't necessarily have to be your family. Just really make sure that it's someone that you trust and you know will always have your best interests at heart. And you know, you completely trust them. That's key, really.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well. Some people might say, well, I don't have any family or friends that I'd want to give that responsibility to. You can actually appoint professional attorneys. So some Solicitors Act, some estate planning professionals also as well will act as your attorney. So with that, obviously you'd probably want to leave a lot more direction about how you'd like to be looked after in different things, whereas your family you'd probably rely on a little bit more that they just do the right thing by you because they know you really well. But there is that option for a professional.
There certainly is.
So something I hear quite a lot, which I just want to get rid of the grey area and make it all black and white, is I often speak with clients and one of the questions I'll say to them is, have you got a will? And they'll say, yes, I've got a will, it's up to date, all is good. And then I'll ask the question, have you got a lasting power of attorney? Oh yeah, that's covered in my will. Now, I hate to have to tell them that they're wrong and that's not possible because they're two completely separate things. A will is used for when you're gone. Once you've died, your will is used to distribute your assets and your estate as you wish. A lasting power of attorney is for during your lifetime, so it only gets used while you're alive. Once you've died, it ceases to be able to be used. So as soon as you've passed away, nobody can use that anymore. So they can't go into the bank and say, oh, I need some money out for their funeral. You can't do that as a power of attorney. It would then be the executors of the will that would be the people that would need to go to withdraw money for something like funeral expenses. So they are very, very different pieces of kit, basically.
Very different. I've actually got an interesting statistic for you.
Ooh, I love a statistic. Go on, Becky.
You've led me nicely in to get that in seamlessly. So according to the Office of a Public Guardian, It's estimated that 40% of the UK population has a will. Can you guess the percentage of people that have a lasting power of attorney in place? Emma?
Oh, I'm guessing it's a lot lower. I'd go 20%.
It's going to be lower than that.
Really?
It's shockingly low. I was so surprised.
Go on.
It's actually only 1%.
Really?
Yeah, and actually the note that I've got here says that it's less than 1%.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's shockingly low.
It is. So I was talking to a client the other day, and they always say, every year I say to them, have you got a will? Yeah, we've got a will. Have you got a lasting power of attorney? Oh no, we haven't got around to that yet. Oh, we still feel far too young for that. No, I'm all right. And you can't force somebody to do it. They have to do it of their own free will. So we just gently remind them every year. And this year I said to them, have you got your lasting power of attorney yet? Expecting the same answer. Oh no, still haven't done it, haven't got around to it yet. And I get yeah, we actually wanted to talk to you about that. And it turned out that the husband had had a stroke.
Oh.
And they'd realised actually just how important that document was to have. And actually, they're not too young for it.
Never too young.
So what I often say to clients is, having a power of attorney is like running a baton race. Do you remember that at school?
Yes.
Used to hate that.
Yes, me too.
Nothing worse. But it's like a baton race, and the power of attorney documents are your baton. So say you get them today, you get them registered today, they're all in place and ready to go. Until you physically pass that document on to your attorneys for them to go and use it wherever they need to use it, whether it be the bank or something to do with your home, whatever it may be, they can't do anything without that document. So until you pass it on and say, okay, I'm ready to hand this responsibility over to you now, can you please do it? No one's going to take anything away from you. It's not like one day you were responsible for everything and the next day, oh, actually your children have taken over, you have nothing to do with anything. It's not like that. You're still fully in control, fully responsible for everything until you decide that you can't be.
Or you can't be.
You physically can't be because you've lost capacity. So it's just something to think about. It's one of those just in cases. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it's something that you never even have to use.
But it's definitely a good thing to have in place. Actually, going off the back of your the story about your clients, another one of my statistics that I have.
You have been having a dig around for some statistics, Becky.
I have. So 40% of people who say that they're not interested in lasting powers of attorneys don't think that they'll lose capacity, don't care, or don't want to tempt fate.
Wow. I've had that a lot with wills, to be fair, saying, I don't want to write a will because if I write a will, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
That's a very common one, but I've never heard it about lasting powers of attorney.
More common than you would think.
Yes, indeed. So, lasting powers of attorney, we've mentioned several times about registering them. And what does that actually mean? So, you have to register a lasting power of attorney document with the Office of Public Guardian to make sure that it's actually a legally binding document that can be used. And when you complete the actual document and sign it and everything, you also have to have someone provide a certificate, basically, to say that you do have capacity to be putting it in place. So you can't have poor old Dorothy in the care home that's kind of got Alzheimer's and doesn't really know what's going on and trying to get one in place. You have to make sure that the person has full capacity while putting it in place so that we know that that's what they wanted, that's who they wanted to act for them, to make sure that they're being well looked after.
Yeah, so the certificate provider can be your doctor, if they're able to,
or someone in a financial professional, anyone that
solicitor can do it.
Yeah, I believe it's actually anyone that you've known over 2 years and have a good relationship with. So it can't just be, I've seen the next door neighbour for 2 years, so I kind of know who they are. You can't get someone like that. You have to have known them well, but it does give you plenty of scope to be able to find someone that can be that certificate provider for you. And it is something you can apply for online yourself, or obviously you can use solicitors, estate planners, lots of different people to be able to put them in place for you. So, as I mentioned before, you do have to have capacity to be able to put a lasting power of attorney in place. However, there is something called deputyship that you can get through the Court of Protection if you don't have capacity. It can be a lot more time consuming than getting a lasting power of attorney in place, and a lot more costly as well. So obviously sometimes you have no choice but to go down that route. But if you have the choice, it's always a good thing to try and avoid that. So make sure you've got something in place beforehand.
Definitely. The other thing to remember as well when you're choosing your attorneys is there's two. So if you say wanted to have two attorneys, there's two possible ways that they can act.
So let's give a scenario here. Julie, as she isn't here, she's the one that's putting the power of attorney in place because, let's face it, she's the older one, Becky. Couldn't be us. Shh. And me and you are going to be her attorneys.
Okay.
So do you want to give some examples of the different ways you can set them up?
Yeah. So the first way that we'll talk about is jointly. Mm-hmm. So if me and Emma are attorneys jointly for Julie, cool, that's a mouthful, jointly for Julie, then it basically means that any decisions that we make, we both have to make them and we both have to agree on them. So let's say, for example, we wanted to set up a new bank account. We would both have to sign the application to say, as attorneys, we both agree we want to set up the HSBC bank account, for example.
Okay.
The next way that we could be attorneys together is jointly and severally. Mm-hmm. So if we're joint and several attorneys, that means, yes, we can do some decisions together. So we can go into the bank, we can open a bank account together. But it also means that we could act separately. So say, for example, I'm on holiday and for whatever reason Emma needs to write a cheque out of the bank account as attorney for Julie. You'll be able to sign, Emma, as Julie's attorney without my signature being needed as well.
I see.
So it's basically together or separately. So it's covering both scenarios off.
Just gives a bit more flexibility,
yeah.
Really. And I guess it depends how much you trust the people that you're asking to be your attorney as well. If there's any doubt, it's a good thing to have both of them to sign for everything, because then there's kind of eliminates the risk. The other way of setting them up is thinking about whether you want your attorneys to be initials or reserves. So I'm going to keep the same example. Julie is our having the power of attorney put in place. Me and Becky are both her attorneys. If we're both initial power of attorneys, it means that both of us can do whatever we need to do at the same time. So jointly and severally, we can do whatever we want whenever we need to look after Julie and make sure everything's being done. Now imagine that Becky is an initial attorney and I'm the reserve attorney. What that means is that Becky would have to do everything. Becky would be doing anything that Julie needed to be done, and I can't physically do anything as the reserve attorney. The only time I can do something is if Becky were to die and could no longer act, or if she chose not to act as an attorney and she actually removed herself as an attorney and stepped down from that position, then I could step in and act. But until Becky does that, I won't be able to physically act as an attorney for Julie. So I think it's really important that you realise that when you're setting up these attorneys, because it can be quite easy to tick a box and think, oh yeah, that's what I want. And then actually, when it comes to using them, if you don't know how they're set up and actually you then can't actually do what you want to do.
It doesn't do what you expected it would do.
It's not going to really help you at all. I'd also just mention that it's worth kind of stressing to your attorneys what the job could involve. So I know, Becky, that you are an attorney for somebody.
I am indeed.
And is there a lot more work involved than you ever realised?
There's a lot of work involved. It's so easy to underestimate what needs to be done. So think about if you've got, say, like an elderly relative and they're moving into a care home, you potentially may need to sell their residential home where they used to live. So that would mean obviously speaking to an estate agent, dealing with the solicitors, selling the property, clearing out the property of all of their belongings, sorting through everything.
Cancelling all the utility bills.
Yeah, getting in touch with all of the utility providers, making sure there's a redirect on the Royal Mail. Basically, as if it's your own house, you're doing it.
And that's without thinking about the care home they've just gone to.
Yeah.
Whether they need to have an eye test, if they've got a doctor's appointment, how they're going to get to their doctor's appointment.
Yeah, that potentially would be your responsibility as the attorney.
So there's a lot involved. So that's why I say it's just worth making sure that your attorneys realise what they're potentially letting themselves in for. Like we said earlier, hopefully they'll never have to use it because you'll be healthy and able to do all of these things yourselves for a very, very long time. But you never know what's around the corner, and it's worthwhile having one in place just in case.
Definitely is. And just, like we've said already, just so you have it there ready to go. So when it's needed, you haven't got to wait and there's no delay, and you know your family or your attorneys, whoever they may be, can access your money if they need to. There's no hold-ups in them doing what they need to do.
So I think that pretty much covers lasting powers of attorney, didn't you, Becky?
I think so.
It's a lot of information for people to take on there.
A lot of information there. So,
but that if you go on the government website, there is a lot on there that is quite simple to understand. I think that you can kind of learn a little bit more about them, how they work, and if you've got any questions, you can always ask us.
Certainly can.
And with that, we've completed today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed following along with us today and taking another step closer to a financially secure future.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, you can head over to themoneycompass.co.uk, where you can find out more information, hints and tips from today's episode.
If you'd like to get more involved, share your own experiences and learn from a friendly community on a similar journey to you, why not join us in our Facebook group, The Money Compass, where we will support you in navigating your way to financial success.
Thank you for listening and see you next time.